I wanted to do a quick demo of what happens if you flat out replace O1 with deepseek-reasoner inside your code base. I have a product right now where it's connecting to my Google Analytics, and it's going to do a bunch of data analytics on top of that. I'm just going to click on generate. This is going to gather a bunch of context, start generating a bunch of sub-questions, answer each of those sub-questions, generate SQL for them, and finally create a report in the end. I'm going to show you two versions. One report that was made with deepseek-reasoner, another report that was made by O1 Medium. With deepseek-reasoner, I get a slightly more robotic sound, but really, really good analysis. Basically see that it just came up with 3 recommendations, which is fantastic. The first thing it just said was focus on these top channels, allocate half of your marketing budget to these things, and try and figure out referral programs. Again, the exact recommendation here was a bit sus because I can't exactly do this for GitHub and Bing users, but it was interesting. The other thing it tells me is reverse declining engagement trends. It's giving me a really, really, really sharp insight over here, which I thought was interesting. And the other really interesting thing was it's able to give me these interesting recommendations in general, which is desktop users have more sessions per user, but something happening with these Android plus Samsung internet users, I don't exactly know what. Something interesting to check out. It's coming up with these recommendations. I think some of them are hallucinating a little because I don't think there's anything in the data to suggest like anything about like load times, etc. But yeah, when it is coming up with recommendations, it is coming up with very, very specific recommendations like the ones you're seeing over here. O1, on the other hand, comes up with much broader recommendations, almost never hallucinates, which is great. Comes up with much broader recommendations, but they're often not as specific, they're often not as useful. Here I'm seeing very, very similar analyses, but the recommendations aren't as sharp. So again, if you look at the same thing of address declining trends, here it's just like giving me this fairly vague insight, while the insight I got here was a lot more specific. On the whole, these models are pretty great. You can choose to just replace O1 with DeepSeek if you want to, but I think DeepSeek, in terms of that final layer of polish, is not quite there yet, which is totally expected because these guys have just released the model. I think they absolutely will be there in another month or so once they get more feedback and more data. But for now, that I thought was a fairly fair comparison of the two.